Hey guys, Frank with Tithely, coming back at you live with another episode of Modern Church Leader. It's great to be with you. We've actually had a week or so off. We just did a big product launch announcement, which was a ton of fun. Had about 8,000 church leaders sign up to check that out, and launched a bunch of new things. So anyways, that caused us to take a little time off from the show, but we're back today. We're actually doing this on a Thursday, which is a little bit out of the norm, but hopefully we get a good crew joining. Really excited about today's show. We've got a guest coming on that is a church administrator, works kind of on all things admin as well as tech in the COVID-19 season. And we're just going to talk about 5 ways or maybe a few more of how to keep your church engaged during this church online season. And I know a lot of churches are still meeting online and probably going to stay online for the foreseeable future, depending on kind of how you meet, whether you have a building or you're renting, what the restrictions are in your state. So lots of things are impacting how churches are meeting, and church online is here to stay. So we're going to jump into it, and let me bring in my guests. Hey, Lee, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I love the background. You've got the setup there. You've got the good, you got some of the cool, like I see the yellow car. I can't quite make out what it is.
Yeah, I'm a Mustang guy. That's a Mustang.
Mustang. Love it. Very cool. Well, Lee, man, it's great to have you. Thanks for doing this. And why don't you tell the audience, who you are and what church you serve at? Kind of what your role is there, maybe how you got into ministry. Just give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so my name is Lee. I serve at a Christ Lutheran Church in Georgetown, Texas. We're an ELCA church.
Cool.
I started as a church administrator May of 2019. So pretty new to this. Before that, I spent 20 years in banking, and then
2019, like a year ago.
Yeah. So I started this job, and then, God threw a pandemic at me.
Welcome to the world of church administration.
Yeah. Before that, I was in banking. So I spent 20 years. I was a teller, branch manager, loan officer. I managed a support team that handled remediation and customer complaints. I've been in internal audit. So I feel like that was probably the Holy Spirit's way of guiding me to this point.
Getting you ready, serving in a bank. I don't know what, like the banking industry strikes me as it's changed quite significantly in the last 20 years with the invention of online banking and banking on your mobile phone, apps and all this kind of stuff. But, for forever, people had to walk into the bank and actually interact with a human being and all of that stuff. So right. I'm sure you had your fair share of serving people and dealing with complicated situations. When you're dealing with people's money, as we do at Tithely with kind of online giving and stuff like that, it can be a sensitive topic. So I'm sure that sets you up well for serving in the church.
Yeah, that kind of pressure and responsibility, and then it's all about the relationship and serving people, and so that has done well for me.
Yeah, very cool. Quick shout out, we do the show live, and we've got quite a few folks jumping on here. So if you're with us, we'd love to know where you're from, what church you're with, what part of the country you're in. Maybe you're international, Australia, Canada. But let us know where you're from and what church you're serving at, maybe what role you play at that church. We love to get to know our audience. So Lee, why don't you tell us a little bit about your church? So you're kind of out in Texas. You're in a church, what?
We are, Georgetown is about 30 miles north of Austin, so kind of right in the middle of Texas. Our community is the church community. We have about 600 members on the roll, and we have about 200 to 300 active members.
Okay.
And we have a senior pastor and a small staff that run the whole show. We own our building here and have been a part of the community for 70 plus years.
Oh, wow. Been around for a long time. Yeah. Pretty cool. So talk to us a little bit about how, COVID hit everybody, and every church closed. But what's it been like for you guys? Like, how did you guys shut down, and what did it look like to go online?
Yeah, well, we'd heard about it for weeks, and I was personally struggling with what to do. But March 15th was the last Sunday that we worshiped in person.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'd sent kind of an emergency email out to the work council run, out to the president, vice president, and some other folks to get some feedback about where to go and what to do, and provide some suggestions.
Yeah.
So that actually turned out to be what we call a COVID response team. We meet weekly to discuss whatever's happening currently and to make decisions about what we're going to do going forward. And, it was decided that we wanted to close the building, keep the staff safe so that we could serve our members and keep our members safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Monday, the next day, I put all the staff in a meeting room, and we spent most of the day discussing what our goals would be, how we'd implement them, and how we would support one another through what could be many months of dealing with this.
Yeah. But like everybody, you were probably like, this is going to be over in a couple weeks, and we'll be back. And was it that kind of feeling at the beginning? And
yeah, well, I guess my nature, I default to being a little bit cynical maybe. And so in the back of my mind, I always plan, the plan is how can we sustain this? But yeah, I mean, optimistically, we were all hoping a few weeks and, we'd be back together and doing things like normal.
Yeah. And here we are. 5 months later, or maybe 6 at this point. That's all a blur. So like, what was it like? Were you guys online prior to having to go online?
No, I mean, we have, in 2017, we updated our sound system. So we have fancy AV equipment, but we were still using it just to show slides during worship. So we had zero experience in the whole streaming realm.
Like you weren't doing Facebook Live or YouTube Live or
no, none of
those
that.
kind of things.
We do have a church Facebook page, but just for sharing pictures of the kids at camp and things like that. So we weren't really leveraging technology prior at all.
Yeah. And so you were like, and what did you do? Like were you online the next Sunday or?
Yes. Yeah. So, in that meeting, we decided that if it was possible to provide a live worship experience on a Sunday, that's what we wanted to do. So it seems like I watched 1.5 million YouTube videos
on how to do it
to figure out how to do it. And luckily enough, all the equipment was there. So it was just a matter of administering the live stream, which I had zero experience in, but I have become the behind the scenes live stream guy.
And your role, like Lee, give us your actual role pre-COVID and being kind of the live stream and tech guy. What's your day-to-day responsibilities at the church?
So so it's like everything that's not dealing with the Holy Spirit, right? So making sure the building runs, making sure all the people have a place to be, watching the budget, helping. I sort of, before this started, I kind of went into the role of, in council meetings monthly, just encouraging the council to look forward, to create a vision so that we are a sustainable church and that we're a part of our neighborhood as a church.
Yeah.
So that was the meat of what I did.
Yeah. And today it's kind of, pre-COVID, but it's kind of all things administration, keeping the lights on, keeping the building running, keeping the budget in shape, all expenses, staff, all that kind of stuff. And then into COVID, now you're also the tech guy?
Yeah, I log jammed myself after managing people for so many years and trying to avoid that, but there's just no choice. So at some point I'm going to teach two or three others how to do this.
Right. And
yeah, I'm the tech guy.
Did you guys go Facebook Live, YouTube Live? What did you choose?
We went to YouTube Live. Okay. And so we brought in, I have a guy monitoring the live stream. I have another guy that's doing like the slides and the camera angles in the church.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing the camera angles through, the streaming software to go live. And then we have one singer, the organist, and the pastor, and then the rest of the staff are the voices in the church. So they're mic'd so that people at home can hear the congregational response.
So you guys are doing the live stream from the building.
Yes.
And have you done that the whole time? That's been kind of your approach.
Yeah. The goal was to provide a Sunday service that looked pretty much the same as if you were here. Got
it. How do you feel like that? Like, how's the congregation responded to that approach? How do you think that's going?
The feedback has been excellent. And I think for our group, that was the best possible choice.
Best way to go.
Yeah. It allows us to once we're back in person to do exactly the same thing and still stream. So we won't have to make any changes when that happens.
Yeah. I mean, I want to come back to that because I think that's a really important kind of topic. Like, when everyone's back in the building, which will happen at some point, what do churches learn about their online presence and how to do all these things kind of during this time? And our church is going to continue on, right? So maybe we'll come back to that thing at the end. But so during this, 5 or 6 months, let's talk about keeping your church engaged online, because I think there's been, what I've heard a lot, I'm sure it's not every church, but what I've heard a lot is online engagement was up, kind of spiked at the beginning, and it's kind of slowly come down over time. Churches were seeing crazy attendance online, crazy numbers, even churches that hadn't really done it before. But then there's this like online fatigue and Zoom fatigue, and kind of like doing church online is getting like monotonous or, old for people. So I'd love to hear, even going all the way back, what have you guys done that's really helped with like online engagement for the congregation?
I think the way we delivered online engagement sort of follows that trend, so that we weren't causing the exhaustion. We ended church right in the middle of Lent. So we started doing Wednesday worship. So we would put together videos that we would share on Wednesdays. We had fellowship opportunities where pastor did a coffee in the morning on Zoom, and then we had an evening digital drinks kind of fellowship opportunity.
Yeah. And you did, let's pause on that real quick. So you guys did coffee with the pastor, digital drinks, and you would just do those on Zoom, and they were like a casual kind of join if you want to jump in. And so it wasn't necessarily, this is more of a question, it wasn't like a Bible study or a midweek kind of service or anything like that. It was more an informal, just come and like as if you're just coming over to the house.
Yeah, I think it really served to connect our people. When we're social distancing, isolation can be an issue.
Yeah.
And this allowed folks to jump on and see people that they would have seen in church. So we didn't want to keep it heavy with a sort of guided Bible study.
Right.
It was more fellowship and maybe, some discussion around church, but it was to serve the community, to keep them connected.
Right.
And we were offering, the Wednesday worship plus Sunday services. So we had that part of it kind of lined up.
Yeah. And how did it go on, like using Zoom? Not that it has to be Zoom, but just kind of that format of everyone's on, people got their cameras on, did you see pretty good engagement, or are you still seeing pretty good engagement in those informal?
Yeah. It was probably more in the beginning. And so there was some, I think the staff was worried that we weren't serving enough people. So a lot of times I spent saying, even if it's 2 or 3, those 2 or 3 are the ones that needed that engagement that time. So it's all important work.
Yeah, really good, really good. Yeah, they're the ones that showed up. So it's like going to have coffee with somebody.
That's right.
Like kind of one-on-one. Very cool. So love the Zoom stuff. You were mentioning videos, so you're recording videos, and just describe that a little bit. Like what are these videos and how are you using them? Yeah,
so we had this Lenten package that was themed around wilderness, which was very appropriate. And so we would record videos of the staff doing the readings and doing some of those things, and then sharing those, putting a slide in there for, having a home discussion surrounding the reading or whatever the gospel message was.
Right.
And then that sort of morphed into after, during Holy Week, we did some midrash services. And I learned this year. Midrash is just an interpretation of the Bible in conversational speak. So it's dumbed down for people like me that need to help making those connections.
Yeah.
And then the really cool part of this was that to make people feel like they were engaged, we asked members to record themselves being a part of those videos.
Oh, cool.
So not only was the staff delivering these things, then congregation members were recording reading parts and things like that so that other members could see them.
And so would they send them in to you, and you would
send the videos in, and we'd clip them together with the worship video and send it out. And that morphed into, on Sundays, we have 2 readings and a gospel. We have a psalm reading, and then we have some prayers of the people. And those are all recorded by members. So we include those in our slideshow and play those videos each week. So every week we have members engaged in the service.
So like that's kind of part of, so are you guys pre-producing service or doing it kind of part produced and part live?
It's all live in ProPresenter, and I'm sure many of these kind of worship programs, you can embed video.
Right.
So the video just becomes a part of the slide, and that during the portion it's just pre-recorded.
Yeah. So that's all pre-recorded stuff, but is somebody actually live? Like the other elements were in the building with the people.
They're all live.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great idea in terms of just incorporating the church, the people into the service in various ways. That seems like it's taken off. So really cool.
I think that helps keep them engaged too. Kids want to watch themselves be a part of the worship. And I think people tune in not just to get that spiritual fulfillment, but to see other members.
Yeah.
And, wonder who's participating that week.
Right. So now is it a thing? Is it like a formal sort of it's happening, or is it?
It is. I mean, we have a list of people volunteered for, a few weeks ahead of time. We send the readings out, and every week we embed those slides, the video into those slides. And
and are they just popping out their iPhone and recording kind of on a phone and popping in? That's really cool.
Exactly right.
I mean, I love the engagement factor of that, right? Like it's engaging the people, the church, and they're participating and putting church on, and then they're kind of like there. And so when everybody's watching on Sunday, they're like seeing, different people, right? Different families they know get up, different kids do things. And it's the family part of church, right? That's being brought into the service in this online format that you'd otherwise just get by being in the building with each other, because you'd see each other and, all these kind of things, but you're incorporating that. So that's a really cool way to just, drive that engagement. And then obviously the people that are actually doing it are even more likely to like be at church and maybe share it on social media because they're participating, or maybe their kids did something funny or whatever it might be. Yeah. That's awesome. Have you guys taken any of that material and like created a compilation, like all of it like together somehow? And I don't know.
Well, I guess that might be a project in the works, but there was a couple of families that were doing some of those Wednesday worships I was talking about, and they didn't edit any of their stuff. So I put together like blooper reels, which was pretty popular.
Classic.
And, that was a lot of fun. So that might be something we can do in the future, I think.
Like church bloopers.
Yeah. Like where they were reading and they would mess up and make a funny face or just bust out laughing or, that kind of thing.
I mean, I think that's life. And that's cool, like kind of bringing that stuff out and the church all being part of that. That's cool. I love all these like things, like almost like unplanned, but it kind of happened and now it's becoming almost part of who you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff online. So hopefully people are taking note. Church blooper reel, I think would be epic.
Yeah.
I feel like you could create a church blooper reel, almost every church just on Sunday service, like just on what happens on the live stream, because, everybody's like learning, and early days, the first month or two, everybody was messing up and like their audio wasn't on or their camera didn't work or just whatever, all kinds of like issues down. So, cool. Well, any other ones that come to mind in terms of like really driving engagement?
So we've done some easier ones. So that's kind of how we morphed, the demand on the staff was huge to do all that stuff every week. So we pared it back a little bit. We added some Zoom faith formation Sunday things after live stream worship. And then we did a Facebook prayer forum. So every Tuesday evening, who are you praying for? Who should we pray for? Mm-hmm. And that's been a way for people to engage without that sort of huge commitment of time and, sort of on their own terms. So there's opportunities for all kinds of different ways to engage.
And that's so on Facebook, the church page is posting a question. Hey guys, who should we be praying for?
Yeah.
Who are we praying for? And then people will comment and engage in the post that way.
And then, so the staff just posts that, and then we don't have to commit our time to delivering anything because it sort of perpetuates itself by the responses and things. So it's been nice to do those kind of things too.
I mean, that sounds so simple, but what I really like about that idea is getting your audience, your church members, to actually engage on your Facebook page. And it could be anywhere. It could be your Instagram account. It could be your YouTube account. So it could be any place, but in your guys' case, you're getting someone to actually interact on your Facebook page in a meaningful way. It's actually, I think a lot of churches struggle with like what to do and like, what should we talk about, or how do we get people to care? How do we make it useful for, the church and meaningful? So, just what should we be praying for is such a simple way. And if you can get, you've got a few hundred sort of active folks, if you can get them actively participating in that post every week, well, guess what? They're going to see that post in their Facebook feed next week because they engaged with it the previous week. Like Facebook's going to start to make that thing from the church Facebook page show up in their feed more often and in a more obvious way, like over time as your church engage. And then all of a sudden you've got a Facebook page with church members who are actually engaging with it versus like, 600 people who have liked the page, but never do anything there.
Right.
So I think that's cool. Prayer requests on Facebook. Take note if you're, if you're watching live. So any other ones that come to mind?
I think that's the crux of it. I mean, we did a Wednesday series around Unraveled, so we had Wilderness and then we had Unraveled, which fit the situation perfectly. Yeah. We're getting back to, schools starting up virtually in places and in person in other places. So we're looking towards engaging the youth, because normally this is when Sunday school and faith formation starts to happen again.
Yeah.
So kind of what that looks like in this world, and not being the drain on that one last hour of a student's time, but being the uplifting portion of their week, maybe, and what that looks like. So that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah. Well, let's jump back, maybe the last couple of minutes. Let's jump back to this topic of going back to church in person. So what's it look like in your area in terms of opening back up the building, and how are you guys preparing for that?
Yeah, so we did try for 3 weeks. So we worshiped in person for 3 weeks where everybody was masked, everybody maintained distance. And then in Texas, the number of new cases spiked like crazy. So after 3 weeks, we decided to go back to just online.
Yeah.
Our sort of plan that we understand it might take a pivot at any second is to most of the kids around here go back to school in person right after Labor Day. Okay. So seeing what those first 2 or 3 weeks bring in terms of numbers of cases, and then making a decision that maybe sometime in October we can get back to in-person worship. And I think some of that is just deciding that this is how we're going to do things for a while. So getting used to that instead of being really scared about everything.
Right.
Doing everything you can do to make people safe, but trying to do things that seem familiar.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, it's all going to be new.
Yeah.
It's when people are going back. And it sounds like you're going to keep the online church running. Like, now that you've been doing it a certain way, that's going to apply pretty easily. So talk to us a little bit about, what you're thinking there.
Yeah. So my thinking and the direction I wanted everybody to take was that we can do this for the long term, and this is a permanent change. So what do we do now that we won't have to change anything? So as an example, we have projectors in church. What we put on the projector is exactly what we stream live. Mm-hmm. And so the intent is to do the very same thing when people are here. And then that doesn't have to involve a new set of training and rules around what we're going to do then. So all our decisions have been made for sustainability, I hope. Yeah.
And have you thought about, or have you learned anything about going online, and has it reached more of your community, or have you seen we're getting kind of new people joining because it's church online, and do you think that's a great way to stay connected with the community and kind of open up the doors of the church to those who are seeking, and kind of by having it online versus people having to come into the building? Like, what are you guys talking about around that topic?
Yeah, I think there are people that are going to engage in this way on a more permanent basis. I do think we've attracted more folks that may not come regularly because of commitments and everything going on in their lives, that are able to sit at home in their PJs with a cup of coffee and be involved with worship, but are able to get on with their day or rest from the busy week they had with, kids everywhere and all that kind of thing. So we feel like this is going to be a great change to engage with the community for growth, for all those things. Yeah.
Has the topic of doing church online and how that might impact physical attendance come up? Like, is the leadership in any way worried, oh, people are just going to join online now versus come into the building? Is that something that, has been a topic of discussion yet on the staff?
We talked about it. I mean, I think our feeling is that, and as an introvert, this didn't really bother me in the beginning, but it's bothering me now. That fellowship, that in-person interaction is important. And I think people will miss that.
Yeah.
So being able to not make it 1 week and do it online, but having the opportunity to be in person with folks, be in fellowship and communion with people, is something that I think people will take advantage of. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be maybe as big an issue as people think.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree with you in that sense, but I just know it's kind of a thing that church leaders are going to struggle, like not struggle, they're going to wrestle with and trying to figure out. But man, we were built to be in connection with people. So
that's right.
You know, connecting online and eventually that leading to in person for new folks, and even, you know, longtime members, I think want to be with each other when that all makes sense. So I'm with you. I don't think online is all of a sudden going to affect in-person attendance all that much overall. So, well, Lee, man, it's great to have you. It looks like there's a gentleman in the comments by the name of Barry Smith who said, it looks like we're in exactly the same position. So like a church staff, like role at the church. So you should connect with Barry. Okay. But anyways, it's been great to have you guys. Thanks for joining live, everybody who's on with us today. I forgot to say this, but real quick, if you're joining us now and you haven't already, let us know who you are, where you're from, what church you serve with. We love to give away different things. We've been on a kick lately, giving away a pair of AirPods. These guys over here, they're awesome. So make sure you let us know where you're from, what church you're with, what role you serve in, all those kind of things in the comments, and we'll pick someone out of the comments and connect with you guys. We always announce the winner in the newsletter, so you'll see it kind of in the weekly email that we send out. And it's been great to have you, Lee. Thanks for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Frank. It was nice.
Yes, we'll keep in touch. We didn't talk much about the giving side of things and all that, but real quickly, you guys switched to Tithely in June?
Yeah, just a couple months ago.
Yeah. You were the courageous individual that decided to switch giving providers in the middle of a pandemic. How's that gone for you so far?
It's been great. I think that's really what has helped sustain giving for us. You know, we've seen a drop, but not near as much as if we weren't able to provide a way to give electronically. And you know, if anything, we've learned that jumping in the water is okay. So yeah. We took the leap and changed providers, and we're very, very happy to be partnering with Tithely.
Yeah. No, it's great to have you guys. Show for another time, we can talk more. But Lee, great to have you, man. Everyone who joined live, appreciate you guys. And we'll be back next week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.